Oh man. The whole point is to share it on here.
Oh yeah, that's right. Embarrass the shit out of yourself.
Keep the conversation, as random as possible.
And you're doing a fine job on your end.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to JG's Lounge. I'm your host, Jukebox, and here we are with another episode of Stardom. 2 days in a row, actually. And with me, we got a wonderful guest, Poetics Man. How are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course, man. I always love doing these. It doesn't matter who you are. Usually, you can have a good conversation with anybody. Usually.
I appreciate you, man. Great to be here. I'm honored.
Yeah, good man. And I like to always tell my audience, hey, if it wasn't for you guys, I'd still be doing this, but it's always nice to have somebody listening or watching. So appreciate everybody.
Right.
Yeah, and like I did say that usually anybody's always down to have a good conversation, but I have had episodes where like I'll have a guest on and like they just can't they don't have that social skill. So
right. Yeah.
That does happen.
Being a people person kind of definitely is a big requirement in this industry.
Right. So, Poetics, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, man?
I've been doing poetry, which is where the name comes from, probably since my early to mid teens. Mm-hmm. It's been a nice little journey for me. I'm still writing to this day. And I'm kind of just branched off in the podcast through Evolution and yourself, Jukebox. I'm just happy to be here, and it looks like this thing can really go somewhere. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Yeah, me too, man. I'm excited to have you on, and it's always nice to have people that are interested. Especially with JG's Lounge or the YouTube channel kind of growing the way that it is. I've got 5 active podcasts. We've got 4 more launching next month.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. No, it feels. I've been doing this for 3 years, so it feels really good to kind of just see it finally taking off. So,
right.
With that being said, what enticed you about doing this? Like you're doing podcasting.
Actually, to be honest with you, Evolution came to me about it. And it was something I kind of had a little remote desire to do. Mm-hmm. I'm really big into sports, really big into different life different things when it comes to life itself. So I try not to limit ourselves and so forth. And when Evolution came to me and told me about you, I was just like, yeah, man, let's try it out.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for me was my first year of podcasting. I didn't know at all what I was doing. And then I really got comfortable with it. I kept going. And I had to take a step back because my wife was like, look, you're very invested in this, but you're spending a lot of time doing it. And I was like, okay. So I took like 2 months off, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, I really miss doing it, but how can I do this to where I could turn it into a business, but not have to devote hours on end? And I was like, I'm gonna build a network because then I can help control it without having to dedicate an hour every day to do a show or twice it. So yeah, man, and now it's just going exactly how I want it to go.
Exactly. That's perfect, man. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate it. You're right here in the Kansas City area as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good, man.
Born and raised.
This weather needs to make up its mind. I'll tell you what.
I know, right? You don't know if it's going to be fall one minute or if it wants to be spring.
Right. So, with the startup podcast, usually I pick topics and keep the guest blind until we're live. But I figured, why not give it a chance where I'm blind as well? So I downloaded a random generator app. Okay. And it's going to pop up words, and we're either going to look at each other clueless or we're going to have some sort of story to tell.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's get this going. First up, crooked.
Oh,
that's a pretty intense word. That's an intense word.
Am I going first or you?
The first thing that comes to my mind is a lot of businesses these days. A lot of these bigger name companies.
Yes. Yeah, you definitely took it right out of my mouth. And to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, I hate to say it, but politicians, right?
Oh man, politicians, dude. I tell you, I can't even go get a gallon of milk without thinking, why is that the price of the gallon of milk either?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it seems like everything is gas, with the inflation rate, gas, like you said, a gallon of milk,
Mhm.
everything.
Oh
I
man,
like,
when
yeah, that's the word that comes to mind for sure.
when did you how much was gas when you first got your permit?
Man, I would say I kind of like, I was a little older, so I just kind of went and got my license, but it was like every bit of like 280, maybe less.
Hold on, that's how much it was when you first got your permit?
Well, you know what?
Not really a driver. You don't really care to drive.
You know what? It was, I take that back. I'm sorry. It's probably about $2, maybe a little less.
Okay. See, for me, I think it was 97 cents before I got my permit, but I remember it being 97 cents.
Right.
And then I got it when I first got my permit, it was like $1.19. And
Okay.
then I've seen it as high as like $4. And in the last couple of years, it hasn't hit
Right.
that point, but recently, but I've seen it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And we go all the way overseas to get it when we know we have some in our backyard. It's there's plenty of places where we get oil, we get stuff to do it ourselves, but instead we wanted to appreciate everybody else's countries first.
Right. Right, exactly. It's like, how can we I guess branch out into other
Mhm.
companies when we haven't taken care of home yet?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Next up, give.
Give. Wow. I would say, I mean, you can kind of go a lot of different places with that, but I would say the first thing I think of is, being a giver.
Mhm.
I can kind of relate directly to that myself. I like to give in the marriage, just give to help other people when I can.
Mhm.
So definitely I think give is a huge thing for me personally.
Oh, I agree 100%. I always try to, if I've got kids' clothes that are too small, and I'll either give them to my neighbor or take them to a charity rather than throw them in the trash.
Right.
With that being said, there are certain things that I don't recommend donating. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, I'm all for thrift shopping, but sometimes you go there and you're like, why, and why is this even on a shelf?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, it's kind of not necessarily out of date, but it's just
Mhm.
kind of like it's not even presentable to even give to anyone.
Right,
You're
exactly.
like, this is on the shelf,
Right. Clothes shopping at like a Savers or something, and you see like 6 stains on it, and you're like, why did they put this on a rack?
Right, exactly.
All right. Next up, assistance. This is a good one.
This
I
is.
thought.
I always thought, like the ways you can go with that one too. But I would say, I think I always look at it like no one is an island. So every
Mhm.
now and then we all need a little assistance.
Yes.
Sometimes you're on the receiving end of that assistance and someone's in a position to be able to help you. Other
Mhm.
times you're, on the giving side and you're actually able to help someone else come out of a tough time or whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, assistance is always a necessity, I think, at some point in time or another.
Oh yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me when it comes to assistance is like I have a very heavy head, and like I'm all for like, nah, I can do this myself. But there's times where you don't have a choice but to get the assistance if you want to succeed.
Exactly,
Mm.
exactly.
So yeah, that definitely a big one for me. Even with the podcast, right here recently when I realized how many more shows were coming, I actually added Evolution and another buddy of mine onto the channel as admins, because I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to sit here and monitor and help distribute all these shows, so I'm gonna need the assistance.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's perfect.
All right, next up, defeated. Oh man, this
Defeat
kind
it.
of plays into the last one.
Yeah, it does. A lot of times, one thing that I think is real for certain is that life is going to throw a lot at you.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes I think it can be easy to feel defeated,
Mm-hmm.
where you're kind of like, man, I just took this L. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, a lot of people have issues overcoming that defeat, but it's kind of like, you're only defeated or you've only truly failed when you've stopped trying.
Right.
You kind of get knocked down, but as long as you can, find it in you to just, hey, I got to keep pushing through. I know I can get back up and overcome this.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're still winning. So,
Right. Right.
life is definitely that marathon and not a sprint. So,
Right. And I agree with that 100%. Even in the sense that defeat doesn't have to be a bad thing either. I mean, there's some things you're just not good. I mean, I know that there's things I'm going to try this and I know it's not for me. And I know no matter how much I try, I'm not going to be into it, and that's okay. You don't have to enjoy everything. So to being able to accept that, so there's certain things you're just not going to be great at because you don't enjoy it is okay.
exactly. Perfect.
So when it comes to poetry, kind of get off here, but is this something you do for a career? Do you just write? Do you write poetry and do music, or do you just write poetry?
Great question. I actually started way back, like I said, when I was probably like 13, 14.
Mhm.
And believe it or not, it kind of stemmed from Tupac. I was
Okay.
heavy into Tupac, still pretty heavy into him now.
Mhm.
But yeah, it kind of started from listening to Tupac, Biggie, a lot of hip hop artists.
Mhm.
Um, Here these days, I'm really a huge Nas guy.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, so I like some underground things as well. But yeah, I would say Nas for me is probably one of the bigger inspirations in terms of just writing in general.
Mhm.
So
Now that's something you do for a career. Like that's what you do.
not exactly. It's more so something that I've just kind of done to just kind of see what comes of it. But the only thing I do know is that it's a real nice natural gift for me. Never had a writer's block. Um, you can throw a topic out at me and then I can actually probably come up with a poem for it in like 15, 20 minutes.
Oh man, that's
Yeah, yeah,
impressive.
yeah. It's pretty cool.
And see, when I write, I've tried writing, but I have too much of like a comedy bone in me. So like even if I try to be serious, it typically ends up just comical.
The beauty of it is, as a writer, you have total autonomy over what you want to do, what you
Mm,
want the audience to get from what you do. So you can actually use that comedic bone in you to kind of, I could say sway it in your favor,
mm,
where you're kind of like, okay, I want to write this today. And I know because it's me writing it, it's going to come off this way. That's
mhm.
okay too. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it doesn't have to, everything doesn't have to be, serious. It could be what you
Mhm.
want it to be. So,
Right. Right. And then you see, then like you hear certain artists that'll like they'll throw out verses and like the words that they put piece together to like rhyme or to finish the set, uh, it's like how did you pick those two words and then line them up to make sense?
right. Yeah. It's definitely, I think, some kind of genius
Yes.
involved in certain aspects. So I appreciate it as well.
Uh-huh. All right, let's throw another word out here. All right, let's
Cool.
see what we got here. I don't even know what this word means, to be honest with you. Felicity.
Felicity. I think it means more of a peaceful thing or a tranquil thing where it's kind of like you accept something based on what it is kind of thing. And you've made peace with it kind of thing. More like a
Okay.
serenity
Okay.
synonym, I think.
Well, sure.
Um, So yeah, I would say Felicity is huge. I
Mhm,
think I have a lot of different backgrounds, and one of them is kind of some religious or biblical background. And
mhm,
there's a verse in the Bible that says, God grant me the serenity to, you
mhm,
know, accept the things that I can't change,
mhm.
and that sort of thing, and kind of having wisdom to know the difference on what you can and cannot change.
Right.
So I kind
Yeah.
of often think of that when I see that.
Yeah, and then that kind of plays into the last word as well is just being able to kind of know your limits as well and being able to accept it. you're not going to be the best at everything. And
Exactly.
sometimes you want things to succeed, and it actually kind of brings you down in a way, or puts weight on you, and it's not beneficial.
Right.
Yeah. So next up,
Right.
put.
Put, that's an interesting word.
That's very well. I think I want to play off of this and put an effort. Because I feel like it's necessary to, if you're gonna do anything, you gotta at least put in the effort to do it.
Exactly.
You can't just expect it without putting in some work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, man. Piggybacking on what you said, like you said, putting in that effort and understanding that sometimes things didn't, to your point, you even kind of bore testament to this earlier. Sometimes you'll put effort into something and it doesn't take off right away. And you're like, man, I've been doing this for a while. And now it's like, now I'm starting to kind of see the fruits of that labor coming to fruition. And I'm kind of like, that's because you were patient and you put that effort and that time in. And now you're seeing the fruits of that labor come in for you.
Right.
So
there are times where people put in too much effort, and then like the people around you notice it, and then it's like, oh man, all right, you got to take a step back.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. There was a time, like about the time when I was told that I was putting in too much into this, and
Right.
I had to look at it like, well, okay, yeah, I've been doing shows like 4 or 5 days a week, just trying to crank out episodes, get out content. And I wouldn't say that the content was bad, but I wasn't realizing how much the rest of, what's behind me in my life, because I have a day job too, so it's like, this is something I'm wanting to invest in and turn into something to kind of weigh out the other side, so I can kind of back out of that.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
finding that balance.
Took it right out of my mouth. I was literally getting ready to say you're trying to find that balance, and eventually you're probably trying to get away from that other option that you're into at the moment. So I get it.
Yes.
I get it for sure.
Do you ever have that with writing? Like, is there ever something that you're writing and you just get you're like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like and you just kind of, maybe you like the concept, but you have to scrap like several of the verses and redo it.
No, actually, it doesn't happen that often. It's kind of weird for me. I think I'm in a unique situation when it comes to writing, where I mentioned earlier, never having a writer's block, or I might have changed a few words here and there when I'm doing maybe editing after I've written something, or on those lines, but never kind of just like, oh, I want to eliminate this verse or this line altogether. Never been in that situation, but again, I'm in I would say probably a more unique situation than most poets, I think.
That's fair, man. Yeah, and I'm in a situation at work, where I put myself up to a task, and they put me in a department, and I'm like, okay, I really want to succeed, but it's a hard area that I did not expect when I got into it, and there's a lot to it. So it's like I'm it's trying to figure out what I'm good at and what I'm not good at.
Right. Is it something that you're even interested in doing, that area that you've been reassigned in?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love I love it, and that's not the issue. So it's just, I need to figure out how to make it work.
Gotcha. Totally understood. And then that's part of that balance that you're putting in the effort to figure out, okay, how can I make this work more efficiently? So you're kind of like, as time progresses, you're going to see how to make it work, to the best benefit of not only yourself, but probably everyone else around you.
Right. Have you had a job like that though, where you got hired on and you're like, no, this isn't for me?
Yeah. It's kind of funny. My most recent career was in the solar industry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was always a solar consultant on the sales side. And it's funny. It's the only job I've ever had that I've actually not only liked, but loved. But, you see a lot of different circumstances while you're in the field. And you're able to, like the selling point part wasn't really an issue. But you kind of, when we're in Kansas,
right.
So we're not in the state of Arizona or the state of California where you get all this sunshine all year round, even though in the solar industry, you in Kansas and Missouri, they're in the top 10 in sunshine states. I never knew that fact until recently. But
Right.
a lot of people are just, we're in a, I think people are really afraid of the economy. They don't want to make a commitment to something that they feel they don't have to have. And it's kind of like, I felt like I was really naturally good at it. I didn't try to come off so salesy, but it's also one of those things where, different markets have different, things that can benefit you as a consultant as opposed to another market. And I've learned that really recently. And I say, you know what? As much as I enjoy this, I think it's time to do something different.
Yes, yes. And actually, that kind of plays into a lot of issues that I've noticed as far as like business and work is like, you see employees that come in and they're decent at it, but you can tell they don't. Some of them don't care, or like there's just so many avenues out there where people can make money now without even having to step foot out the door.
Exactly.
So it's like I can go do physical labor for 9, 10, 11 hours a day, or I could figure out how to make money on my phone. Yeah.
I mean, and you're kind of piggybacking into something that even made me get into solar in the first place. Most of my career was in the warehouse industry. So, Fuchs Lubricants, Tyson Foods. I'm in the warehouse overnight throwing boxes. They can weigh up to 100 pounds, and you got to do 12-hour shifts of this thing. So I say, one day, my brother had passed a couple years back. And it was then that it dawned on me. And I'm like, life is absolutely, too short to waste time on things you don't absolutely love.
Yeah. Yes.
So I said, instead of me killing myself, trying to, do this, I said, why don't I use this a bit more? And I think I can make that work a little better.
Yeah. And there's some serious money in podcasting and doing this.
Yes.
I mean, ad revenues are willing to pay a ton of money, and even merch companies or brand clothing. Like if you get enough views or following, it's like, hey, we're gonna not just give you product to wear or to promote. We're gonna pay you for it.
Right.
And it's dumb. Like there's
It's
dumb
crazy,
money.
isn't it?
It's stupid. And I mean, I haven't touched it yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, evolution's kind of filled me in on some things, and I'm just like,
Yes.
okay, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've been telling them, I'm like, look, man, the problem with it is it's a sketchy market. So you have to like really know who you're getting invested with and what the potentials are. Like if you're not losing out on it, okay, maybe you give it a shot, but also have that escape go, or know that, and then whether you signed a contract or not, that it's in there like, hey, if this ain't working, it ain't working. I'm allowed to back out and this is still mine. So there's a lot of things that play into it. And, there's been a lot of things lately that I've been offered. And one in particular that I'm looking into is, I mean, a game changer kind of financially, assuming that it goes through. But if not, I'll just keep on trucking until I find something that works.
And I like your attitude, man, because I think a lot of people in life kind of lose sight of, you don't have to settle for something just because it's on the table. And if you feel like, okay, my ambitions are this, but this doesn't come anywhere close to where my ambitions are, it's kind of like at some point you do settle. Some people look at it like, oh, well, I'm using a stepping stone. And I'm like, you can look at it that way and that's fine too. But it's like, sometimes you have to understand what your value is, how valuable your time is, and that sort of thing. Cause that's one thing you can't get back is time. So
right.
I like your attitude and how you're going about your business. So that's really cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And I think that's the toughest part of doing this is like knowing the potentials, but making sure that you stand your ground. Like I've had a lot of opportunity where people are like, hey, join my channel. I'm like, no, I'm trying to do what you're doing. The difference is that I know I'm going to do it, and I don't know if you're going to do it.
Right.
So it's like I appreciate it, but I think I want to keep going the way I'm going.
Exactly. You're sticking to your guns, and because you're doing that, you're going to end up exactly where you want to be because you're not settling. You're still putting in that time and that effort. and you're
Right.
not going to take defeat, So
Right. No. Yeah. No. I won't. I won't take defeat. Even if it's a matter of just kind of switching gears a little bit, it won't be a defeat.
right, exactly.
hmm So, before you kind of got interested in doing this, have you ever listened to podcasts or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm really heavily into YouTube, so I do have a few different people that I follow and what have you. And I've always thought to myself it would be kind of cool to do something like that. I
Mhm.
never thought I'd be placed in a position to where I would be here today,
Yeah.
or
hmm
working with you and
hmm
evolution and that sort of thing. So
hmm
it's kind of just seeing it all come,
Yeah.
work its way around. It's kind of like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've talked to people in Australia. I've talked to people in the UK. I've talked to people in Ireland. I mean, I've talked to people all over the place, and it's neat because it's like this. All I got to do is go in my basement, throw on my computer and go,
Right.
and just have a conversation, man. And I'm good at it. I've definitely became really good at it and comfortable with sitting in front of a camera, not even realizing it's there.
Right, exactly. And I think that is a beauty unto itself, where you probably have a gift in that area of, you're just kind of doing you. You're just,
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, hey, I'm sitting in front of this camera, but like you said, you're in a situation where you're like, man, oh, I forgot this thing was even on.
Yeah.
And before you know it, maybe 30 minutes to an hour has, went by. And
Oh, it is, dude. That's the craziest thing about this. Like, look, we're already a half hour in, and it felt like it's been 10 minutes,
right,
because it's all about the flow. And I tell people all the time, like, yeah, I mean, I have random topics, I'll do random whatever, but as long as the conversation is going and it's enticing, and there's information coming out of it, I don't care what we're talking about. To be honest, that's the beauty of doing this.
exactly. Exactly.
Now I'm not great with I steer away from politics and religion. Um, I grew up very strict Pentecostal, and
Gotcha.
I kind of steered away from that due to my childhood and my upbringing. But it doesn't mean that I'm against religion. I just I don't have a mouth to speak on these subjects too in depth, so I just kind of steer away from them.
And there, that's a beautiful thing too. It's like you don't, there's no written law that says, okay, just because you've had some experience in this area that you have to talk about it or
Right.
make that the basis of your channel or podcast. You
Mhm.
can do with it. It's kind of like writing poetry. You can do whatever the heck you want to do, however
Right.
you want to do it. And the people who are really interested in what you're doing are going to tune in, and everything's going to work out just the way it's
Mhm.
supposed to.
Oh yeah, and I've told people, I tell people all the time, like, look, check it out. It might not be for you. That's fine. It doesn't have to be for you.
Exactly. But you might tune in and be like, oh wow, I like this. I'll
Yeah,
subscribe or whatever,
yeah. Maybe there's one episode you didn't care for, but you liked another one. You just
Right.
gotta kind of mess around with it.
And then that word of mouth travels too, sometimes
Uh-huh.
the people know, family and friends, they're like, this is not my lane, but I know, my brother would love something like this. And all of a
Yeah,
sudden you get support from another avenue, and it just works itself out.
it does. It does. One big thing about bringing a network together was like, okay, so let's say a guy goes, hey, I want to do a podcast on your channel. Cool. Now his following is going to be my following, and now he's also already got that on my end that's already existing. So it's just going to continue to grow, and then one podcast can flow into the other one, and it's just a waterfall of just opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, man. When, like you said, it's all about the flow.
Oh, it's definitely about the flow. I mean, I don't want to, and I've already talked to Evolution about this. Like you got to kind of gauge the person that's wanting to come on too. You don't want to just have somebody that's kind of interested but doesn't have a voice for it or doesn't feel
Right.
comfortable doing it, because then you're gonna have 3 episodes, then they're out the door. Is it really worth the investment if they're just not gonna work?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well
Which
done.
you're doing just fine. You have no problem responding, so that's
Oh
good.
yeah. I love it, man. And like it is funny because I'll be honest with you, man. At first I was kind of like, it was something I had a little bit of interest in, but I didn't know what was going to come of it. And then,
Mhm.
like I said, Evolution shared with me some details recently over the last couple of days, and I was just like, whoa,
Mhm.
if I wasn't interested all the way in before, I am definitely all the way in now. I'm
Yes.
just like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's hit this thing 100 miles running.
Yeah. Yes. Especially, and and I've told my wife is like she doesn't like talk radio, it's okay, fine. And when COVID first started, I was like, what am I gonna do? Like what do I want to do? I love talking to people. And
Right.
then I didn't even know what a podcast was, but I searched for I like a lot of different music, and there was a specific metal band I was looking for, and this podcast popped up, and I was like, I didn't even really know what a podcast. I mean, I'd heard of it, but I clicked on it, and I was like, oh, all right. And I listened to a couple episodes, and I'm like, I want to give this a shot. So
Right.
I used my phone, and I built a pillow fort, like to hide in to kind of cancel out all the audio, the back feed. And I did a couple episodes, and I was like, this is kind of stupid, but it's fun. And I posted some stuff on Facebook, and this guy goes, hey, have you ever thought about having guests on? I was like, no, let's give it a shot. And as soon as I had my first guest, I was like, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah. And I call that growth, man. You're able to, expand. You took someone else's idea and was like, you know what? This could work out. Let me give it a shot. And now you're kind of happy that you're doing it, and probably wish you may have done it even sooner.
Oh yeah. As soon as I hit go live, man, it's and the one thing about doing live episodes is it gives opportunity for people to jump on and be a part of it and interact in the comments, and I like that raw reaction from people. I don't
Right.
want that scripted, okay, I need to cut this out, or I need to cut this out. Like that raw reaction, it's great to kind of get a vibe of somebody and understand that there's gonna be issues. Like I've had issues where I pop off, my guests are like, where'd you go? And then I just gotta come back, or whether it's audio issues, it happens. These things are gonna happen, but you just gotta run with it and actually utilizing it and making it comical or spinning off of it.
Right.
That's a trick, but it works, man. It's good.
Yeah, everything can, like we said before, everything can still work out to your benefit, and it's kind of unique in that way where it's like, wow, this thing kind of went awry, but at the end of the day, it turned out really great,
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, man. So let's get another one of these words out of the way.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's see what we got. Oh, BlackBerry. That's pretty simple. Actually, you know what this reminds me of is when phones first started coming out. BlackBerries were pretty popular, man. I like those I like those keyboard. I always liked that keyboard phone.
Right. Yeah, it's funny, man. I never actually used the BlackBerry before. I've always, I'm people are going to talk about me, but I've always been an Android guy. So
me too.
You too?
Yeah. All right, now I'm using a Samsung S21 right now.
Hey, that's where it's at. And I've got like this Motorola, so it's like nothing special, but I'm like, it does everything that people always. It's so funny, they always like, oh, if you don't have an iPhone, you just don't have a phone. And it's kind of like, actually, my Android does pretty much everything your iPhone does. Like,
yes.
Only I paid a whole lot less for it than you did.
Oh my god, yes.
It's crazy.
It's all part about that, dude. The rip off, getting ripped off, dude. It's
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Really, phones in general are kind of a rip off because the manufacturing cost to make a phone is like less than $50.
I believe it.
It really is. I mean, because they pay for like the development of the hard drive, or and that, but then once they have it and they're mass producing it, it only costs like $25-$30 per hard drive.
See, that goes back into that word we used before, crooked.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the fact that you always have to upgrade because your software or whatever it's lagging or it's not performing at the same efficiency as it was a year ago. So now you've got to upgrade and get you another phone. And yeah, they know what they're doing.
They definitely do. Do you remember the brick phones, those Nokia brick phones?
I think so.
It was like one of the very first cell phones, man. It was like this little brick, like looked like this, and it had a keyboard. And you had to hit each button 3 times to text a letter.
Yeah, like those. Yeah, those came out in what, like the 90s or something like that.
Yes, like the mid 90s. Yeah, I even had a pager at one point.
Yeah, those were huge too back
Yep.
then. Yeah.
I remember in elementary school, I had one of those pagers. I thought it was the coolest thing, man.
Yeah, I mean, especially during that time, and yeah, when you're that age, especially, of course, you're like, yeah, I have something that most kids my age will, not see, kind of thing. So,
Yeah. No, and it's like I think about it still today is like I'm going to be one of the last people that remember the time before phones,
right,
before technology.
right, exactly.
Uh-huh. I'm going to guess you're about my age. So you probably remember that too.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe I'm going off on a deep end on a different area, but I think it kind of coincides. We live in this microwave society.
Hmm.
So, everyone wants everything right now. Phones
Hmm.
or, their handheld computers, everything is
Hmm.
so easily accessible. Whereas, like you said, the time before,
Hmm.
everything wasn't that easy. You couldn't just jump on your cell phone and be like, oh, let me Google such and such, you know.
Right.
It was
Right. Right.
more
Right.
like you had to, hopefully you can get to a computer, and it, it was kind of
Yes.
like it was just such a different time, man.
Yes.
So yeah,
And
that
even
time.
even even I remember having to go to my aunt's house to use her computer, and it was dial up. So even then, it was like, are you gonna have access to it, or is somebody
Ex-
using the phone?
right, exactly. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember all that too.
yeah. And people talk about like how easy it is to find things now. Yes, because you have a phone to do it, but it actually makes us really dumb.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I would say our society has definitely been dumbed down.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Like a lot, a
exponentially.
lot of a lot of people don't even know their emergency contact numbers, because it's a name in their phone.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. You don't even know. I mean, it's kind of like you'll see people and they'll be married. They have their spouse. They don't even know their spouse's phone number because they just have the
Right.
man under the name or whatever name they've given them. And it's like, you don't even know the number.
No, no, man. But like you're stranded on the highway, you break your phone, you need to borrow somebody else's phone. You can't just say, "Hey, call my wife or whatever." You just gotta know the numbers.
Exactly. Exactly.
um,
That's funny.
Talking about a time before phones too, man. I mean, I remember I was a kid going outside and playing in the streets till the dark and all that, and kids don't really do that anymore. Even my
It,
12-year-old is like, "Dude, put the controller down and go outside."
Yeah, I just had this conversation with someone probably like last weekend, and and we were saying the exact same thing. Where yeah, you stay out until it's dark, and your parents. You were actually in a situation where it's like you're not really ready to go home just yet, but you're
Mhm.
like, man, if I don't get home, mom or pops is gonna be really upset with me for not being
Mhm.
home because
Yep.
before the street lights came on, and now it's kind of like people are like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay here and play this game. And it's just like,
Mm,
there's nothing wrong with playing the game, but we need more activity because it keeps your
right.
brain, function intact, and your muscle memory, all that, like all that plays a part into just like I said, a microwave society is what we're in now, and people are just falling further and further behind, I think, at this point.
Right. No, and I've had somebody on before and we talked about this a while back, and we also talked about do you feel comfortable with your kids going out until the street lights come on? And I'm like,
Right.
now that I think about it, today's generation, like I don't actually feel comfortable with it.
Right, right, and yeah, that's the other aspect of it. It's kind of like
Mhm.
you don't even know if you even want your kids out, a certain time. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's funny to say, but it's like it's crazy for people to be out in the daylight now.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, my wife and I and the kids and her mom, we were all sitting down eating dinner.
Hmm.
And there was a guy in our driveway. We could literally see him breaking into our car in the middle of the day. We're sitting there eating dinner. And I mean, obviously, okay. My kid decided to bang on the door or the window to get his attention. But I was a half out the door and I was like, damn it. Because as soon as he heard that knock on the window, like, hey, get away, he took off. But, just the fact that he was at mid daylight, we were home and he was doing it. I mean, come on.
Right, it's like the people have gotten not only more bold, but in a way more stupid.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like you don't have a regard or a thought. Like
Mhm.
I was seeing some videos not too long ago where they're showing people just going around stealing Amazon packages, FedEx packages.
Right.
And, people, we're in a society now where everyone has one of those Ring doorbells or whatever. So, people are looking and, they're actually able to talk to them. And they're like, get away from my door, or, that kind of thing. People
Yes.
dead and take off,
Uh-huh. Yeah. This day and age, there's cameras everywhere, man. There's cameras everywhere.
Right.
And it also flows into the conversation of like, there's so much being seen now that you literally don't have privacy either, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's funny you bring that up. It's kind of like we're in a situation where there, like you said, there's cameras everywhere. So yeah, no right to privacy. It's kind of like you have to think that there's some kind of amendment probably being violated with all the cameras at this juncture.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's nuts.
Yes, no, it's crazy because like if you have a window open, there's somebody in the street and they're videoing you in your house. If they were in the street, that's public property. They can do that. If you had your window open, they're gonna be watching whatever you're doing, and you can't do anything about it.
And that's crazy. It's like you just don't have a right to privacy at this point. It's getting worse, yeah.
It's getting bad. It's getting real bad. That's why we got blackout curtains on every window. So you can't, unless we're intentionally have our windows open, you can't see anything.
I know that's right. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get another word out of the way. How about that?
Sounds good.
Let's see here. Pop it up. Come on now. We got conventional. What you got?
This is a word it's almost a part of my my regular speech pattern, because I always, I might use something like conventional wisdom says I should do this or this or this. And, sometimes it's relevant and sometimes you're like, but I want to kind of go away from what's conventional and realize that there's no box and I don't have to stay in this thing that people say I have to be in. So I think sometimes it's good to be, just as unconventional as it is to be conventional.
Right. And this plays into kind of the conversation we've had of the podcasting avenue for me. It's like when I first started having guests, I started watching other ones and going, okay, trying to critique myself. And at the end of the day, I realized that's not what I want. And that's not what's working for me. And if I continue being a conventional everyday, every other podcast, then this is not going to succeed or go the way that I want it to go.
Right. Yeah. You kind of, I like your approach, man. You have this thing where you're like, I want to do something that's innovative or at least stands out that keeps people interested and want them to come back. And I think that, and in this industry, I would say like any other, but in this industry, you definitely have to have something that people can kind of gravitate towards. We're really big on work life and that kind of thing. So it's kind of like everybody can relate to that because everybody's trying to balance work. Everybody's trying to balance having enough money to be able to do this. So it's kind of like, and then you still want to have time so that you can enjoy the money that you've made. So it's like,
yes. And that's time and money, man. You can't have one without the other almost anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're in a nice situation where we might be onto something where we can maybe achieve that.
Yes.
This day and time is really elusive.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, it is. And when I have guests on, it's funny. I'll have like people who heard about me or something. Like I have a lot of comedians on this one because it's, the randomness of it is probably the best part to get those raw reactions from comedians is
exactly.
But they'll be like, okay, so what do I need to do? How do I get prepared? Show up.
Right.
Even I don't know where it's going to go. I just picked some stuff and we're going to see where it goes.
And that's the one thing that I actually noticed that has stuck out about you from the jump is that, a lot of times, everyone doesn't know what's going to even, take place, what the topics are about until you actually get on the show and it's live. And it's like, I actually like that because like you said, it's a raw reaction. It's authentic. You didn't have time to rehearse what you were going to say before you got on.
Dude, and scripted is the worst, man. I've had authors on, I've had, comedians, musicians, filmmakers, you name it. I've probably had somebody from that field on, and I there's some that'll reach out and they're like, okay, I don't want to talk about this, but I actually only want to talk about these things. And then I tell them, no, you can't come on the show. Yeah,
Right.
it's not because I don't like them, but it's not the way my show works, and I'm not going to
Right.
steer from the direction that my show goes.
Exactly. You realize, like, you have it figured out. You're like, my pocket is there is no pocket. Like,
Yes,
I want, I want to understand. Like, you want to, you want people to be like, hey, just be yourself, basically.
yes,
And like you said, for filmmakers and
hmm
authors and all that, just do an impromptu.
yeah,
Something off the top
yeah,
of your head, and
yeah.
it'll flow right
Yeah.
along. This is what you do anyway. So
Exactly, exactly, and you could bring it up. Yeah, you mention it when we're talking. There's no problem mentioning stuff. But when you sit here and say, "Here's the script," I'm like, "No, no, no. My show doesn't have scripts. I don't script
exactly.
anything."
Exactly, and it allows you to relate to so many more people because you're not like I said, you're not limiting yourself to one thing. You're
Right.
saying, okay, we can talk about this,
Mm.
and this, and before you know it, so many people are going to be like, you know what, that hit home with me.
Yes, yes. And I love to tell people the name Stardom. When I first created it, my wife loves reading reviews. She loves reading comments and like Amazon. There's a lot of stupid reviews on products that people just put out there just to kind of get noticed. TikTok stuff goes viral. This stupid stuff, and
Right,
the definition of the word stardom is a rise to fame. And I was thinking, man, this day and age, so many people are putting out the dumbest things to get fame. And
exactly,
so when I have guests on, the best way is to have them come into it blind because the reaction is that, the raw reaction is the best when it comes to that kind of stuff, man.
exactly, exactly. I love
Yeah.
it.
Uh-huh. Hey, so I really appreciate you coming on today, and I really am excited to kind of go forward into this venture with you and to help you and guide you any way I can into growing too.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you having me and,
Mhm,
giving me the opportunity to, showcase,
mhm,
what I can do. And like I
mhm.
said, man, just being able to link up with people like yourself and Evolution and, hopefully many others, man, it's a privilege, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
looking forward to it.
and I know plenty. I definitely built a network of people as far as like connections and being able to find somebody in a field or whatever. And that's probably the coolest, just knowing that I have done that over the last few years.
Right. That exemplifies your hard work, man. And
Mhm,
like you stuck with it and you're sticking with it. And
mhm.
like you said, everything's going to turn out the
Yeah.
way it's supposed to, the way you want it.
I think the biggest advice is there was a point where I was getting really good at it, and I had booked out shows for about 2 months. But I was running everything on my own, and it almost became overbearing. So
Right.
kinda knowing your limits and stuff like that helped, but also that helped me kind of with the guidance of the networking is like I might have somebody interested in coming on and it might not work to get them on mine, but I can say, "Hey, there's 8 other podcasts or there's 9, 10 other podcasts on this channel.
Right.
I can get you on a show."
And it goes back into one of the words we've had earlier, assistance. You're understanding, man, this is kind of overbearing, this is overwhelming. I'm doing a lot, plus you're working, plus your family.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot to try to juggle. So you're like,
Uh,
you know what? Let me try to delegate and see if someone can do this and wants to do this. And it's like, okay, cool. Now it's like everything's trucking and
mhm.
everything is smooth. You're not stressed. That's the way
Right.
it's supposed to be.
Exactly, exactly. The last thing you wanna do is give off the vibe on a show that you're not doing very well.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, hey, again, man, go where can people find you? I mean, you don't really have a lot of you got a YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel, Poetics. You can actually find it under Poetry's Elite as well.
Mhm.
But other than that, I probably need to do do more in terms of networking, maybe get an Instagram or a Facebook and all that. So I might work on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and if you need help with those things, I can help out with that as well.
I
I
appreciate it.
helped Evolution with his, and actually, he's got a pretty solid setup now, so, I'm always willing to help out.
Yes, sir. I'll definitely, accept that help.
Alright.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, and hey, everybody that's tuning in or is gonna tune in, watch this later on or whatever. We appreciate you. And, JG's Lounge is all about just building a place for people to come and relax, hear some good conversations, laugh a little bit. And it's going to continue to be that way no matter what show comes on. So I appreciate everybody. And until next time, we'll see you around.
Appreciate you, Jukebox. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good one.
You too.